It's beyond what the Tadawul Stock Exchange in Riyadh could have ever imagined. The world's largest oil-producing firm is being listed here, and shares are expected to be priced in December. It's happening after years of hype and several delays. Aramco is no ordinary company. It's the engine driving Saudi Arabia's economy, which relies on oil revenues. The centerpiece of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030, Saudi Aramco is supposed to bring in enough revenue to diversify the economy. But it's never listed in any of the world's leading exchanges because of transparency fears.
The first idea was either to list it either in New York, London, or in Hong Kong. But there have been some issues, especially regarding the New York Stock Exchange listing, and which was the possible litigation or NOPEC law that could have been adopted by the U.S. Congress. Therefore, there were some concerns by Saudis, and this was expected that Saudis would go for the domestic market listing.
The ambitious Crown Prince set out a $2 trillion price tag. To put that into context, the world's most valuable companies such as Microsoft and Apple stand at half of what the Prince wanted. These firms have a market capitalization of around $1 trillion. If Aramco failed to reach the coveted $2 trillion target, the Crown Prince would either have to swallow the lower valuation or postpone the IPO once again.
That 2 trillion number actually came from nowhere. There was no justification or nothing that substantiated that number. And that number was started floating around in 2016 when the first idea of IPO came to the public from the Mohammed bin Salman. And a lot of things happened actually throughout this period.
For a listing outside of the kingdom, Aramco would have had to prove its reserves are what it says they are. Analysts believe the difference between probable and proven oil reserves can vary. For foreign investors, the biggest concern is about the safety of their investment. In September, an attack by Houthi rebels in Yemen reduced by half the company's oil production. Investors are cautious of Saudi Arabia's neighborhood, with an ISIL-infested Iraqi desert in the west and Iran-allied Houthi rebels in the south, a self-inflicted crisis with Qatar in the east, and brewing tension in the Strait of Hormuz.
No one expected that Houthis or any other non-state actors could be so successful in disrupting the oil production. That also had its impact on the lower evaluation.
Investors also have to consider the opaque anti-corruption drive, which was seen as a shakedown of wealthy Saudis, and the public relations disaster of journalist Jamal Khashoggi's gruesome killing, which was linked directly to the Crown Prince. There's talk of an international offering after the initial listing in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Crown Prince wants to press ahead with privatizing 5% of the kingdom's most valuable company. Saudi Arabia has tried to lure investors from Asia to Europe and from Russia to the United States. There are reports that Saudi Arabia is still holding government-to-government meetings to attract investment from sovereign wealth funds. Industry experts believe much of the investment from the Riyadh listing will come from wealthy Saudi families, not foreign investors. It's curious timing for the IPO, with a weak outlook for oil prices, a bearish global economy, and increased environmental awareness against the use of fossil fuels. Osama bin Javaid, Al Jazeera.
Let's bring in Ibrahim Fraihat. He's an associate professor at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Thanks for speaking to us on Al Jazeera. So it's been an IPO that's been on again, off again. Now it seems to be on. And reports seem to suggest that the Crown Prince is now willing to accept less than that $2 trillion valuation that he had once hoped for. How significant is this IPO for the kingdom?
Well, it's very significant, actually, and for many reasons. One, Aramco represents the backbone of the Saudi economy. And to have this giant company on sale for privatization, I mean, this sends an important message about the control of the economy and the sovereignty of the state, because this is, Aramco is about sovereignty for Saudi Arabia. And here is the kingdom is putting this important part of its economy for privatization. So this is one. And two, there is the important factor of trust, how much the investors are going to trust in this investing in a company that has been attacked lately by the Houthis. And the political stability of the region, because this is probably the most critical time in terms of security for Saudi Arabia and for Aramco.
Right. So what we saw from that attack 7 weeks ago at the Aramco oil fields is that these oil fields have been vulnerable. So has that vulnerability gone away, or to what extent do you think political risk still exists?
No, this is going to represent a very serious challenge, the political stability of the region, because for investors, the very major requirement they need for their money and for their investment is, first of all, is stability and security, which is not the case. This has not been the case in Saudi Arabia since probably 2 or 3 decades, that we're getting this level of instability, and the Saudi system is unable to protect its oil companies with all the arms purchases that it got from the United States in order to do this. So stability is a major factor, and there is also the trust issue, which is that the Saudi kingdom needs the support of the wealthy Saudis in order to back this step and to be able to invest in this. And here we should mention the Ritz-Carlton corruption investigation, where a large number of Saudi billionaires were arrested under allegations of corruption and surrendered large parts of their wealth. And the estimate of the wealth that Mohammed bin Salman gathered from them of about $100 billion. So those wealthy Saudis were expected to be the major supporters of such a step. Now, A, they don't have the money, and B, to what extent they or others really trust this kind of centralization decisions coming from the Crown Prince directly, and they're willing to invest in this level. So this is definitely another serious challenge that we're going to see in this IPO.
And one last question to you, because we understand, or reports suggest, that this IPO is starting as a domestic IPO and then it will see through an international sale at a later date. So to what extent is the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia keen to attract foreign investment? Will they see that foreign investment through? And how does this all fit into his economic reform agenda?
Yeah, well, this, again, the very first step is going to be with the local investors and how much they're going to, to invest in this, which is, again, in terms of the stability and the trust in the leadership, it's not major. It's not there. And this will, to what extent this will be successful in terms of in the domestic market, this is going also to send a message, to the international market and how much international investors are going to send this. So the timing is definitely the worst in my view. This could have been done at least before we saw the Houthis attacking Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabia's oil company Aramco, which could have been a much better situation. And in my view, it would have been much smarter for the Crown Prince is to try to get some political stability before they engage into this kind of major step that's going to put, the Saudi economy on the line for this.
Okay, Ibrahim Fraihat, thank you for giving us your analysis.
Thank you.